Cutting weight. What is cutting weight? Cutting weight, in my opinion and or my definition of cutting weight, is losing a lot of weight in a short amount of time. Now, of course, a lot in a short amount of time without any type of measurement can mean anything, right? So let's break it down even further. Let's say I weigh 150 pounds and the weight class is 136 and I weigh in on a Friday and it's Sunday. That to me, that's a lot of weight. And what is that, 5 or 6 days or something like that? Depending on the size. I'll give you another example of one of my former wrestlers. She told me she weighed about 35 or 36 pounds. And this is when she was quite small. And she wrestled at, I think it was like 3 pounds lighter than that. And she was cutting weight when she was, 35 or 36 pounds to make the next weight below. Okay, so in just those two examples, you can see where one is maybe 14, 15 pounds and the other one is 2 to 3 pounds. But to me, cutting weight is losing 2 to 3 or 4% of your body weight in a small amount of time. And that can be hours, or it can be over the course in the 15 to 16 pounds. It can be the course of 5 or 6 days. Okay, why do people do it? People cut weight to get a strength advantage. Repeat that. People cut weight to get a strength advantage. Okay, maybe you're like, okay, why is he emphasizing that? That I get it. Well, if you cut weight to get a strength advantage, the advantage that you're actually trying to gain may be negated. In other words, you may actually lose a lot of strength if you're cutting weight in a fashion that is 2 to 3% of your body weight in about a week's time or in several hours. So what are the precautions and what should we do if we're not going to cut weight? There is a way that you can lose weight, and I think a lot of the states have some type of system now, and I think the college systems in the USA have got some type of system now too, where they try to, I guess, mandate or require you to do a certain amount of percentages per week. From what I understand and people that I've talked to, I don't think it's sufficient at this point. At this time, it's not sufficient because what I understand, people are still cutting weight. How can we do a better job? As coaches and athletes, we can gauge our success by what we're putting into our mouths over the course of the full training year. In other words, we may never have to cut weight if we have an adequate diet throughout the whole calendar year. Again, adequate. What do you mean when you say adequate? I think you should probably do a little bit of research on the 4 basic food groups, and based on size, how much your body should be taking in per those food groups. Now again, I bring the size equation in there because depending on how much you weigh, you're going to require a little bit more, a little bit less of all the nutrients that you're going to put into your body. What do the nutrients do? The nutrients supply your body with carbohydrates, proteins, calories, fat, and other micronutrients that have your body perform at a high level. Of course, too much fat in your body stores the fat as fat, and then you can gain weight. Not enough fat, and it works the opposite way. In other words, you don't want to be too far on the end of the spectrum in terms of where your diet is. You want to know exactly and precisely what nutrients and how much you want to put into your body. And again, that's going to be determined by size or mass or how much you weigh. So to make things more clear and kind of get back to the point of cutting weight, in my opinion, I do not believe cutting weight is necessary. Have I ever cut weight? Yes, I have. I want to say probably my senior year in high school. I cut weight, a sufficient amount of weight, probably in the range of 10 to 12 pounds per weekend. In college, I want to say in my first 2 years, meaning my redshirt year and my true freshman year, I think I cut in a range of a little bit more, probably about 13 to 15 pounds per week. Now that's a lot of weight. I would not recommend anyone to do that. I am simply giving you information based on, is cutting weight effective and can you do it and have success? You can have a little bit of success doing it. In the long term though, in the long term, you do a lot of physical damage to your body, and you may do a lot of emotional and psychological damage to your brain. I've had several of my friends that I trained with either in high school and or in college, and they look completely differently than they did in terms of their body fat ratio or their fat to muscle ratio than they did in college. And you'll be like, well, what are you saying? Well, they just look completely different. And you may know some people that have cut a lot of weight and their body fat to muscle ratio is a little bit different. Can you have success cutting weight? Yes. Can you have success not cutting weight? Yes, it is possible. I think And I know, in fact, you can transition, and it takes, it may take a year, 3 to 6 months, a year and a half or so for you to transition out of cutting weight. What can parents and coaches and athletes do to transition out? First, understand adequately why you're cutting weight and how that you can strengthen, condition, and get your body up to that same peak power performance that you would be doing to lose weight. In other words, study nutrition, study strength and conditioning, and get references. I'll give you 2 references. I think when I was in college, or maybe when I was in high school. When I was in high school, there was a wrestler from Iowa. He was a national champion at 2 different weight classes. He was a national champion at 167, and then he wrestled 167 the following year, and then he decided, you know what, I can't continue to lose this much weight. In the middle of the year, he went up a weight class and he was a national champion at 177. They've since changed the weight classes, and I think they've added 7 pounds to back in the day when I was going through the system. Another example, there was a wrestler from Minnesota, did the same thing. I think he started off wrestling the season at 177 and he went up to 190 and he became a national champion. And there are countless examples on the international level. In other words, there are several world champions that have won Olympic titles and or world championship titles at several different weights. One that comes to mind quickly is Anatoly Beloglazov. I think he was a world champion and Olympic champion at, these are old weights again, 48 kilos. And then that's 105. I'm trying to think of those weights back in the day. I think it was 52 kilos, which was 114 and a half. And then 53 kilos, I want to say. I can't remember exactly the kilograms, but it was 125 and a half. He was world champion at 3 different weight classes. And you'll say, oh, well, those are the lighter weights. A lot of times, the most competitive weight classes are in the smaller weights, because in certain countries, the population is much smaller. So you've got a much broader base of athletes in the lower weight classes. Anyway, the point was, you can be competitive at several different weight classes, and I've just given you a couple of different examples. And I'm certain that high school wrestlers, for instance, that have won state championships at a bunch of different levels. I've seen it countless times. In fact, my high school career, and this is probably how most high school careers go, went up a weight class each year. You don't see it so much in college, but you do with Kyle Dake, in fact, right? He's another prime example in the USA where he's continued to have success moving up a weight class each year. And you may ask yourself, how is he doing it? Well, I don't know how he's doing it. Maybe you should ask him. But the point of the matter is, you can continue to have success if you're putting the right foods in your body, nutrient-wise, and you're strength and conditioning adequately, and you have a skill set that you've mastered and you believe. I mean, there's a lot of belief that has to go into you moving up a weight class, or believing that doing something differently is going to work. Believing in the unbelievable, that's what some of the most successful people do. It's kind of like a whole nother talk, but again, my opinion, it is not necessary for you to cut a ton of weight. It is necessary for you to believe in your abilities and then adequately learn about strength and conditioning and nutrition. Remember, you can find out more information like this at youtube.com, Coach Shannon, Coach Shannon Talks.